Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. So what if your business could grow without you having to be in every meeting, make every decision, and put out all the fires in your business, answer all your employees' questions? What if your business could be like that? Many people are going to say, it can't happen. It can't happen to my business. I'm so important. We're going to dispel that myth today because it is possible for you to run a business like that without you having to be the center of everything. Our guest today, Ryan Cassin, he's the founder of Superpowers HQ, and we're going to find out how you can unlock your superpower and become a business owner that doesn't need to be there. Now, first objection we're going to hear is that you can't do that without losing the magic of who you are. Again, we're going to dispel that myth because we're going to find out some very important ways that you can unlock your business, develop some great systems, but not lose that magic that you've worked so hard to create. Ryan, as I mentioned, he's the founder of Superpowers HQ, which is a company matching entrepreneurial executive assistants. He scaled Superpowers HR without a marketing team. And I'm curious how you've done that, because a lot of business owners are saying, I can't afford to have a marketing team. So there's going to be some interest in how Ryan's actually managed to do that. And I won't spoil it so much just yet. You have to keep listening to hear the answer to that question. Also, the author of, or co-author of the book, Superpowered, the secret that helps every entrepreneur eliminate the suck, 10x their impact, and have more fun in work and life. And I must say, that's a title that appeals to me because I want to get rid of the suck. I want to have a 10x impact on my business, and I want to have so much more fun in work and life. And I think that all of our listeners are with me in saying, yes, I want that too. Ryan, welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
Look, we are excited to have you here because you are talking to the pain that I guess every business owner that's developed a business has felt or is feeling right now. But I want to ask you, is it really possible to design a business using systems without losing the magic that you create?
Yeah, I love the question. And I think the key word there really for me is magic, right? We don't want to lose the magic. And in my experience, the real magic isn't transferring tasks, right? Like SOPs and processes and all of that. When we think about systems, it's not about transferring tasks. It's about transferring judgment. Especially now that everything can be automated with AI, I think founders are making the mistake of automating just what they do instead of thinking about how they automate how they think, right? A great system captures the founder's judgment in a way others can follow. So the way we think about it is it's codifying your values and your intent, not just the steps, right? So the best systems aren't going to turn your people into robots. They're going to give them a compass so they can make smart calls without you in the room. And that is where you create systems that don't lose the magic of the founder. And we see this all the time, right? So, we're in the executive assistant staffing business. Fundamentally, that's what we do. We help successful entrepreneurs achieve new levels of freedom and growth by recruiting, training, and managing Philippines-based executive assistants. It's a dead simple business, but the best executive assistants that we see are transformative because they don't just do what you say, they start to behave like you, right? And we think about that in sort of three tiers of the relationship: the doer, the thinker, and the builder, right? So the doer, everything lives in your head. You mete out the tasks individually. You have, sort of the desired end goal in mind, and you figured out every step on the path to getting there. And you're giving your doer assistant, but this applies more broadly to anybody in your team, all of the individual steps along the way. And really what we're seeing there is overcorrecting for quality control. If you're stuck in that doer level with somebody on your team for too long, you've just got the wrong who on your team, and you need the right people in the right seats. You need to make a change. The next level up is the thinker, right? And this is where you're delegating responsibilities and outcomes. So think about it less in terms of the individual tasks, but the desired end state, right? And what we find there in particular that's really helpful is an approval matrix, right? So here are the decisions you have the authority to make, the expenses, the processes, the people that you can get involved. Here are the pre-approvals we have in our relationship that allow you to go be a thinker. But the highest tier, what you're ultimately trying to get is to someone who's a builder, right? They're putting together new systems and processes on their own. Again, they're taking your judgment as the founder and they're creating entirely new systems and new processes that didn't exist before. They're creating new assets within your business. And that's where you start to see the compounding effects. And for an executive assistant, that's where you see them proactively taking action on your behalf. So that's how you scale the magic, by turning all of the instinct that you have into actual real architecture, and your personality, you have to codify it into a real process.
Wow, that's some pretty groundbreaking thought, but I'm guessing there's a process to do that, because a lot of people have objected to having too many systems in their business because it does, like you mentioned, turns your staff into robots, but it doesn't teach them to think, and they're just following that process. And then when, as inevitably happens in our business, something outside of that set of structured process happens, they don't know what to think, and the decision comes back to you as the business owner. So I love the way that you've described it as moving on from really just that process.
I would just add on that point, like one of the ways that you can identify if that's happening is this person the leader in the relationship, right? You're going to be the boss, right? You're going to have the final say, the final authority. You're going to set the vision. But is this person a leader in the relationship? Are they pulling you along? That's the pinnacle of it, right? That's when everything is working and you're able to build into a really truly self-managing company.
Yeah. So they are really not just doing a task for you. They're actually thinking through, coming up with great decisions, solving problems before they hit your desk, basically doing all the things that what I see a lot of traditional business owners being captured in is that they're stuck making all of those decisions. But you've created a process of enabling or empowering those team members to move beyond just the systems and give them some autonomy, I guess, authority to make decisions. But you've sort of given a framework on how they go about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, the tension points are that you're giving up some degree of control, right? But you also, I think early on in particular, have to, be comfortable with some degree of mistakes. In our organization, we expect mistakes to happen, but that's a function of moving fast and having people in high agency roles. My only ask to the team has always been, I just want you to be able to sort of show your work. So we can go through and do a debrief. When something goes wrong, tell me how you got to that decision. Tell me all of the context. Tell me what the decision points were. And then let's align on the thinking that would get you to the decision I would make, right? And so, rather than talking again about the specific tasks that were taken, it's how do we align on the actual thinking behind it so we see things the same way?
So a couple of key things I picked up there. Mistakes happen. They're going to happen. But you're talking about a willingness to accept that mistakes will happen. And then the other thing I think is key of, what did you actually do to get to this process? And let's look at what went wrong in this instance and fix it or rectify going forward so that we don't keep making the same mistakes. Is it?
Yeah. And, I've been surprised. There are some cases where things that I think are mistakes, that the way we handled something was not the right way to handle it. When somebody shows me their work and says, well, here's how I got to that conclusion, I say, you know what, actually, I think this was the right decision, right? And I think as long as you're not having those conversations, you're closing off the ability for other people on your team to learn from you, but you to also learn from your team. And when you learn from your team in that way and you say, wow, you came to the same conclusion I would have, I just didn't have all the context or all the facts, it gives you a great deal of confidence that you're on the right path and that you want to continue to, give more control and more leadership opportunity to people who are on your team.
So I think there's a few different ways that we're looking at that. And look, you've got some interesting terms to describe some of the process in here. And I think we've sort of been talking around the point, but like I've had meetings with my team in my business, and I've looked at it and I said, "Wait, what are the issues we've got?" And in every instance, they pointed at me and they said, "Well, you're the problem. You're the bottleneck holding up every process." What is this bottleneck issue, and how does having an executive assistant, as an example, help with that, resolving that issue?
Yeah, I think it's just one example, but I mean, I think everybody who owns a business that has aspirations of growth wants it to grow beyond just their direct control, right? There are certainly solopreneurs have small, support person or two, and they, are going to always be sort of that single point of failure, and that's fine. But for people who aspire to larger businesses, you only have 24 hours in the day, right? And ideally you don't want to be working all of those hours in the business, right? You won't be doing your best work. There's a great story in the book about my business partner Stephen Nooner, and it talks about how his team sits him down and has an intervention effectively and says, hey, look, you're the problem here. You're the one who's holding everything up. You're the one who is the single point of failure. Every time that you aren't plugged in, everything grinds to a halt, right? These are familiar themes to people who are in startup mode, right? And really what it boils down to is he didn't fully appreciate how his team had evolved around him, right? He was so used to a previous version, a previous incarnation of the business where he was the single point of failure. But at some point, you get to the place where you've got a robust team, where you've got people who are truly leaders and you can be the boss. And you have to be able to get to the position where you're giving them the authority and you're not injecting yourself into everything. And so when we talk about freedom and growth, right, I think that entrepreneurs often treat freedom and growth as if they're in tension, right? Like you have to pick one or the other. I'm going to work on my business and be in growth mode, and it means I'm going to sacrifice all my freedom, or I'm going to give all my attention to the freedom that I sought because I became a business owner, but then sacrifice all of the growth. But I think that they're two sides of the same coin, and you create structure around you that protects your freedom so you can grow. In all of our experience, we see hundreds of entrepreneurs, right? And we talk about leverage. I don't think leverage comes from cramming more into your day. I think it comes from protecting the hours when you're at your best, right? So defending your focus so you're spending more time operating in your zone of genius and not your zone of distraction. And so the more robust your support and your systems, right, your who's and your how's, the more work you can do that really moves the needle, the more unique ability work that you're doing for your business.
Mm. So you mentioned the word who's and how's there. And like when we're talking about systems, a lot of people think or immediately go to systems and this is the way that we do it, the how that we do it. But you've mentioned a term of who, which is sort of, it's something that's recently come to my attention. You want to explain what you mean by who? It seems a pretty simple question, but there's a lot more to it, I think.
Yeah, and I was really heavily influenced. Sometimes the most brilliant ideas are, not necessarily original in their conception, but original in their phrasing, right? And I thought that Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy have such an incredible book. I would highly recommend it, Who Not How. And it's a really simple concept that turns the typical entrepreneur's thinking on its head. It says, instead of asking, how do I 10x my business? Or how do I, build a marketing program that performs? Or how do I find the right person to be the next hire in my business? Instead of asking the natural inclination question of how, because we're all wired as entrepreneurs to fix problems, we ask who. Who is the right person who has done this before? Who has demonstrated the ability to do this in the past? Who can I bring into my business that already possesses this expertise? And it does two things. A, it gets much higher quality work because you've got people who are experienced and have already gotten other businesses to where you want to be. The other thing it does is it preserves your individual unique ability work, right? So if your unique ability is not building a marketing program from scratch and putting AdWords campaigns together and social media posts and graphics, you can go down the rabbit hole on these things and spend months and months and months and have very little to show for it. You'll take something that you were incompetent at and maybe barely begin to scratch the surface of competent. You could just bring in a who's already expert level at that, have them employ their expertise and preserve your time focusing on the things that you are uniquely good at. And the business will, across the board benefit from that. So I think super simple concept, but the idea of just shifting the mindset from every time it's a trigger, right? It's this habit you get into. Every time I think, gosh, how do I do this? You immediately interrupt that thought pattern and you say, wait, who is the right person to help me do this?
Yeah, it's quite groundbreaking. And as you said, sometimes the simple concepts. Confession time, I've just finished reading Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, and we've had that motto plastered up on our whiteboard in the common area of the office, Who Not How. And a lot of the time they're going, well, it's not you. You're not who. It's somebody else. Somebody else has to be the who, not you. But I think a lot of the trap, and I think a traditional business owner, and look, for those who can't see me, I'm in my 50s. I'm what you call a traditional business owner, or I've come out of that sphere. The trap for us is that we think we have to do it, that we are the who, but also that when we're hiring a who, we think that we need to know how they should be doing their job. And we fall into that trap of not letting the who do the best job that they can.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the big mindset shifts. Again, this applies to anybody you might bring into the team, but we see this constantly in the executive assistant world in particular, this mindset shift that has to happen, right? There's this natural inclination to say, I'm going to delegate certain tasks down to my executive assistant, right? I don't like doing email. I don't like doing my calendar. I don't like organizing travel. I don't like preparing for meetings and making sure that I've got all the details about the people I'm meeting with. I'm going to delegate all that crap down. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think when, again, beyond just executive assistant, rather than looking at it as delegating it down, it's a delegation up. You are taking things that you are not good at. You say as much, right? I don't like doing it. I don't feel energized by it. I don't bring creativity and innovation to it every single day. Instead of you doing those activities, you're going to give those activities to somebody who that's their unique ability. And believe it or not, people exist who are amazing at the things that you aren't amazing at, right? And so it shifts this mindset from these are menial tasks because I can't do them very well to these are meaningful tasks because they're important to get done. And actually, they're important to get done the right way, with consistency, with creativity, with passion, right? And the thing that unlocks, again, beyond just the executive assistant context, is that the people on your team are not expenses anymore. You aren't delegating things down to them. You aren't viewing their tasks as menial because they aren't your unique ability tasks. And you aren't looking at their contributions as an expense. You're looking at as an investment, right? And I think that unlock for a lot of people, it reframes their relationship with the people on the team and the things that they're doing. So I think that just simple twist from delegating it down to delegating it up, from menial to meaningful, and from expense to investment. Those are really critical shifts that will unlock better teamwork.
Absolutely. And I guess a lot of that rubbish work that we don't like doing, there's a lot of automated techniques now to actually help with that. So use those automations where you can, but use the skills of that that assistant, that team member, and use their skills to the maximum that they can do, because you've hired them for a particular reason because of a skill they've got. Use them. Let them use that skill.
Absolutely. And automation is amazing for doing things that you've already figured out and just need to get it done again and again and again consistently. I love it. We love automations. We've got a ton of automations, particularly on things around our hiring process. We're interviewing 1,000+ candidates every single week. If we didn't have certain automations in place, we would never be able to keep up with it. And we would never be able to grow a big enough team to touch all of those prospects in the way that we want to, with respect, with dignity, with consistency, right? So what do? We build tons of automations, but what does it allow? It allows our hiring team to do what they do best, which is connecting one-on-one with people, assessing character, figuring out if they'd be a good fit for the team, for the client that we have in mind. Those are unique ability tasks for those people on the team. That's where they're thinking. That's where their magic shows up. We want to build tons of automations around them so we can keep them very much in their unique ability. I think that AI and automation, and we're just at the beginning of this. It's easy to, ChatGPT wasn't even a thing. It's 2025. It wasn't a thing in the mainstream in 2020, just 5 years ago. So we're at the beginning of this huge sea change where I think AI and automation are going to unlock so much potential. And what it means is that it's more important than ever to know what your unique ability is and what unique ability you're hiring for in your team. So you can find somebody who's just extraordinarily good at that, and you're going to automate everything else around them away. And they're just going to be able to focus in their zone of genius. And you'll have a team of people who are just living in their zone of genius every day, bringing more innovation, more creativity, more consistency, more passion to what they're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Like we've been talking about using your team and their skills and their unique abilities. And I think you mentioned this earlier on in the conversation, but looking at, as the business owner, you have some unique abilities. There's something special about you. But you mentioned when you use a team wisely and unlock them and let them, empower them to do the super things that they can do, you can then focus on your unique abilities. Now, I think you refer to this as focusing on the golden hours as one way of describing that. Can you just expand what you mean by that?
Yeah, this is the key, right? I think one of the, I don't know if it's contrarian or not, but I think most people think about productivity as like time management, right? And it's like, how do we load up the calendar and have all these adjacent appointments and time block everything so we can get it all done, right? And I think ultimately it's about killing decisions and reducing the surface area of the decisions you make. This plays really well into, how do you capture that magic in building a system? Well, you have to have people who think. You're not transferring tasks, you're transferring judgment, right? Because that allows others to make decisions. Okay, so you've reduced the surface area of the decisions you're making, which means that you're clearer about what your unique ability tasks are, and you're able to protect with greater degrees of focus those critical few hours every single day when you're at your most creative, when you're at your most high energy, when you're at your best, right? And so the goal is not to say, how can we cram more into that short period of time? Everybody has, sort of their set of hours. Maybe it's 3 or 4 hours in the morning. Maybe it's just 2 hours, but you're really concentrated with, valuable thinking in that time. How do we clear away all the clutter to make sure that time is as pure and undistracted and effective for you as possible? Because whether it's 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, it doesn't matter. If you show up consistently every single day, the compounding effects of that over time will be evident in the business.
I guess, like we asked the question at the beginning, is it possible to systemize your business without losing the magic? And I think you've actually shown us that it is possible, because I think you've sort of taken that traditional view of how we systemize, but you've really turned it into, creating your superpower through, creating thinkers and builders that fostering that environment and then unleashing the skill set that you're engaging through your team members. And then the golden hours, the times where you're at your best, I guess that's where the magic happens. That's where the fun happens. That's, the joy in work.
Yeah, absolutely. I see I'll give you two other mindset shifts that we see most commonly hold people up from being able to take action, things that lock people up, right? One would be cleaning before the housekeeper arrives. And I am like massively guilty of this in literally around the house. I will clean the house to within an inch of its life before the housekeeper arrives. And I see this all the time with hiring the right who's, right? We've got to have everything figured out and everything tidied up and buttoned up, lest the person we hire figure out that we don't have everything completely figured out. And it's like, well, what's the point of hiring somebody who's truly an expert if you're going to already figured it out? It is a massive over rotation back to the how when you should be thinking about the who, right? So first, stop cleaning before the housekeeper arrives, whether that's with an executive assistant or any other role you're hiring for. The right person will come in and immediately get to work. And again, do it better than you could do anyway. And then the second piece is just in terms of how I see relationships formed, especially at the beginning, when you are trying to transfer judgment, you're trying to transfer taste and thinking and perspective and opinion, right? You want to imbue all of this on the new member of your team. Remember, relationships are formed in a crock pot, not a microwave. It takes time for all the flavors to come together, right? You aren't going to sort of nuke it for 30 seconds and get this fabulous meal on the other side. You need everything to kind of come together over time. And so for us, we try to think about it in a really structured way. What do we expect? What does success look like at 30 days in? Okay, what does success look like at 60 days in? It's a different set of questions. And what does success look like at 90 days in? We figure 90 days is a really good way to get a sense of if somebody's going to be extraordinary, right? If you're good, you get to 30. If you're great, you'll get to 60. But at 90 days, you should feel extraordinary. And so what are your questions? What are the things that have to be true at those milestones for you to feel really confident about the relationship? And I think that if you take that crock pot mindset as opposed to the microwave, you'll set yourself up for success, and you'll be working, and you'll get more satisfaction from working with higher level A players.
Mm. Yeah, I love the way you've described it there. It does take time. You're going to get this blend of, I guess, the uniqueness of your team, the skills that they contribute, and that's going to take time to I guess, come together into something special. Now, at the beginning, we mentioned that you were able to scale your business without having a marketing department. Now, to me, I've been listening to the wisdom you've been sharing, and I can actually see how you've been able to grow so quickly without having a marketing department. But how can you sort of just spell that out for us, why you've achieved that? I guess summarizing the conversation we've had.
Yeah, the gold standard in any sort of professional services business is going to be referrals, right? Introductions to other entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, I have found, are such a great community of people to work with because they're excited to share with other entrepreneurs something they've learned, right? It could be a hack, it could be a book, it could be, a partnership or a collaboration that they've embarked upon that's working really well for them. We've done a few things. We really, really thought hard about how to create value in our discovery call process. So we have a 30-minute discovery call, and our mission was that no matter what, if they became a customer or they didn't become a customer, that they would walk away saying, I learned something about myself, I learned something about my business, I have greater clarity on what I need to do. So just to kind of break down the magic for you, our approach to the discovery call is to really sort of scope who your ideal executive assistant is, right? Figure out your unique ability, what gets in the way of that, who would be a good fit for you, and what impact it would make on your life. And it's a guided conversation where the person we're talking to, the prospect, they're talking 80, 90% of the time, right? And the purpose of that is not to get them necessarily bought in or get them to, expose their pain points so we can do, this sort of gap selling. I've heard it described so many ways. The genuine, in our hearts and souls, intent is for them to get clarity on what it is they need and to be a better customer for whoever they end up working with, right? They come away with a better sense of exactly what they need to be successful in their business. And we're helping facilitate that conversation. And if we can be helpful by providing them an executive assistant, great, let's have that conversation too. We'll get to it. But we have a really, really high standard. And I know we're hitting that. It is one of the little humble brags that we have on the business, but we take such great pride in it. There are people who decide, you know what, Superpowers is not the right fit for me. Thank you very much for the conversation. And they introduce other entrepreneurs to us, having never been a customer. They refer us based on the sales call alone. So we have worked exceptionally hard on trying to figure out how we can pack as much value into that conversation as possible, and then take that to other formats as well. So in the book, Superpowered, we're not selling superpowers. We're just selling everything. We're giving away everything we've learned about this relationship, a critical relationship for so many entrepreneurs. We're trying to create and give value. And you just create a business that, if that's your mindset and it shows up in your discovery call, it shows up in your materials, you create something that is just value creation becomes part of your DNA, and everybody works so hard to make your business referable, not by asking for the referral, but just demonstrating with our values how we want to show up.
Wow. I think that's a great model, because so many people spend a lot of time trying to get that first conversation and then that discovery call, and then they just botch it. They don't focus on what they're trying. They're focused so hard on the sale, they're not focused on the relationship or the potential other relationships. And as you mentioned, they may not be a customer, but they were referring other people to you still.
Yeah. And I mean, it requires a great deal of restraint, right? Like you want to get in there and you want to solve the problem. They've given you all of their problems, but it's so much more valuable for us to go deeper into the who, what, when, where, and why, or ask 5 how, whys, or, just go deeper, right? And in doing so, I think what we demonstrate is that we've got a really good handle on this one specific key relationship between an entrepreneur and an executive assistant. We demonstrate expertise by just facilitating a fantastic conversation.
Fantastic.
Everybody is an expert in their respective business, right? Like what is your version of that where they come away saying, wow, I feel like I'm better for having taken that call?
Yeah. Look, I think our listeners are probably thinking, I need to find out more about this. You've given me a great, I guess, leg into some great concepts, things I should be doing in my business. Where do I get more? I think, is the book Superpowered a great start?
It is. Superpowered is available on Amazon. It's audiobook, and we'll be happy to send you a copy as well. If you go to superpowershq.com, that's our website. Contact us there. Feel free to take one of the discovery calls now that I've built it up so much. Hopefully your experience matches the description, but happy to send it to you as well. We can get it to you anywhere in the world in a day or two, thanks to Amazon.
Fantastic. So, Ryan, that's been great. Absolute gold that you've shared with us today. Check out Superpowered. There's a lot more in there that we haven't had time to deal or to talk about in this interview, particularly around the approval matrix, which I think is something that's really got me intrigued. Get a copy of the book, Superpowered. We'll put the links to where you can buy the book in the show notes. So if you're driving at the moment, you don't need to panic. Just look those up afterwards. But Ryan, thank you again for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. If there was one thing that our listeners should do that you would encourage them to do first, what would that be?
To stop thinking about all of the menial stuff that they've got on and delegate up instead of delegate down. It's a big mindset shift.
Great. Thank you very much, Ryan. It's been an absolute pleasure, and Superpowered, superpower for your business. Get started today. And as Ryan says, stop thinking about the menial and start thinking about the exciting magic that you can do.
Thank you, Paul.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit, and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.